A ripple of tension raced through every corner of the globe the moment your name escaped your lips. In a covert operations hub, deep beneath a nondescript warehouse, monitors blinked furiously and agents scrambled to secure classified dossiers. Far away, a federal prosecutor's encrypted phone exploded with urgent encrypted pings, each tone spelling disaster for the nation's most sensitive investigations. Meanwhile, in a sunlit recording booth tucked inside a famed studio lot, a veteran voice artist froze mid-script, realizing the childhood fantasies they had once so lovingly narrated were about to be shattered by the revelation of your true identity. A realization hits you like a thunderclap, chosen one. The single act you'd dismissed as a friend's betrayal was in fact the linchpin of a clandestine web woven through every pillar of your world. This network, ancient, pervasive, and unseen, has insinuated itself into the halls of power, the corridors of trust, and the quiet chambers of your heart. The companion you believed to be your confidant, the one whose warmth felt like sanctuary in your loneliest hours, was little more than an agent of this hidden society. For years, they've tracked gifted souls like yours, cataloging your strengths and vulnerabilities, biding their time until they could harvest your unique gifts for a purpose you've only just begun to fathom. A revelation coursed through the fabric of reality the moment you spoke the unvarnished truth. Consciousness itself surged beyond mere perception and forged hidden pathways across the tapestry of existence. In that instant, you didn't merely shatter their shackles, you ignited a resonant field that wove together secrets they'd painstakingly dispersed across unfathomable reaches. Crimes once considered compartmentalized now glowed with the same ominous signature, and every clandestine cell, your so-called friend included, became visible as a node in their sprawling conspiracy. Those fragments of betrayal and deceit, long thought isolated, coalesced into a pattern of corruption that pulsed through every institution you once held sacred. The world around you was a stage, and every actor played their part with chilling precision. The therapist prescribing empathy as a salve for your imagined fears was dutifully filing session notes straight to headquarters. The neighbor who arrived with coffee and small talk just when your anxiety peaked was slipping coded updates into their casual chatter. The distant cousin who suddenly championed your every whim had only one motive: to feed strategic insights back to the puppet masters. Even the person you believed to be a blossoming love interest, so attuned to your every nuance, so flawlessly present, was nothing more than an undercover operative calibrated to monitor your every heartbeat. Each confidant, each ally, was a conduit to the same hidden command, and together they formed an invisible phalanx, encircling you in manufactured compassion while funneling intelligence to a single, unseen will. A sinister ballet unfolded behind the scenes, a clandestine initiative they dubbed Operation Dampeneco, crafted to pinpoint, sequester, and ultimately erase minds whose vibrational essence could fracture their carefully constructed dominion. What seemed like a cascade of personal treacheries was merely the opening gambit in a far darker strategy. As financial forensic teams traced the diversion of your confiscated funds, they unearthed a far-reaching conspiracy. Your wealth was not simply being siphoned off, but strategically redirected into a sprawling media empire. This conglomerate's tendrils gripped everything from children's programming blocks to global streaming services and the very agencies that sculpted voices for animated heroes and heroines. In this way, Operation Dampeneco's architects planted the seeds of influence in every home, ensuring that the next generation's dreams, and the truth they might one day awaken to, remained firmly under their shadowy thumb. A chill ran through you as you uncovered the true depth of their scheme. The voice actor, whose quavering delivery once seemed a harmless quirk, was in fact the linchpin of a vast psychological assault. Their stuttered syllables carried more than dialogue. They were vehicles for fractal layers of subliminal cues, interwoven with precise vocal resonances calibrated to hack developing minds. Each heroic proclamation became an anthem of unquestioning obedience, while every dastardly laugh was engineered to instill dread at the thought of autonomy. Yet this was only the surface strain of a far more intricate melody. Beneath the audible script lay encrypted sonics that synchronized with children's brainwaves, gently rewiring their capacity for dissent and curiosity long before they even realized what was happening. A twisted talent show of deceit played out under bright lights, its star contestant masquerading as mere drama when in fact they were the gatekeeper of their covert recruitment network. That reality spectacle functioned as a living personality test. Subliminal cues hidden in challenges and confessionals would single out the spiritually attuned, the empathic, the extrasensory. Those flagged for deeper promise were quietly watched. Those whose inner spark shone brightest were destined for extraction. And extraction meant you. The unassuming firefighter, hero in the public eye, was the final instrument of their ruthlessness. Every time a chosen soul resisted indoctrination, refusing to be silenced by gaslight or bribes, the cleanup crew ignited their worst nightmares. A blaze that consumed proof, a staged crash that erased testimony, a fatal accident coded as medical misfortune. In Operation Dampeneco's calculus, dissenters weren't defeated, they were made to vanish without a trace. They struck at you with invisible blades, their efforts masked as mere misfortune, yet you survived by threads of fate you couldn't explain. The brake lines that snapped on an empty stretch of highway, but somehow let you coast to safety. The fevers that flared up overnight, threatening to debilitate you, only to vanish when you deviated from your usual path. The elevator cables that frayed just as you reached the top floor, sparing you in that instant by a leap you didn't hesitate to take. Each accident whispered of unseen hands at work, and each narrow escape felt less like luck and more like a silent beacon guiding you away from the void they intended. Each thwarted ambush only sharpened their focus on you, ratcheting your profile through the ranks until you emerged as the ultimate prize, the one mind they could neither crush nor tolerate at large. Once you hit priority harvest, nothing was off limits. They set in motion their grandest gambit yet, an elaborate siege on your very perception of truth. Memories would be rewritten, allies recast as enemies, every facet of your daily existence meticulously manipulated until the world you knew dissolved into the illusion they preferred, and you became trapped in a scaffold of lies from which escape seemed impossible. A cold clinical calm settled over the room as the doctors exchanged polite nods, but their practiced smiles concealed a far darker intent. Beneath the guise of routine care, miniature biosensors were slipped beneath your skin to feed a hidden network of surveillance on your every heartbeat, neurotransmitter fluctuation, and subtle shift in your emotional resonance. The sedatives they administered, branded as painkillers, were in fact psychoactive keys, rendering your mind pliant and vulnerable to scripted reconstructions of memory. And while you lay defanged by their carefully calibrated cocktails, vials of your blood and strands of tissue were cataloged like trophies in a clandestine archive destined for experiments in behavioral control you could scarcely fathom. Every session felt like a descent into a hall of mirrors, each reflection warping the truth until you could no longer trust your own mind. Voices you once heard clearly, warnings of looming danger or fleeting glimpses of the unseen, were reframed as hallucinations, symptoms of a mind unmoored. Through carefully timed suggestions and leading questions, they seeded doubt in your memories, coaxing you into believing that every flash of insight, every inexplicable premonition, was nothing more than the product of a fractured psyche. Bit by bit, your convictions were eroded until you questioned the very reality your instincts had trusted. A soft-spoken doctor in a pristine white coat studied you with clinical detachment, his every gesture rehearsed to perfection. He spoke of paranoid delusions and hallucinatory distortions as if you were no different from any textbook case. Yet his gentle reassurances masked a calculated agenda. The pills he handed you promised relief, but each dose silently dampened the electric hum of your extrasensory gifts, muting the very perceptions you'd relied on to navigate hidden threats. In his office, under the pretense of healing, you became both patient and prisoner, your intuition chemically anesthetized while the doctor checked off each scripted lie. Yet every gambit they deployed against you unraveled before it could take hold. Your mind resonated on a quantum wavelength beyond their instrument's reach, turning each corrupted memory implant into a conduit for deeper self-awareness. The sedatives they thrust upon you didn't dull your senses, but sharpened them, amplifying the hidden frequencies of your psychic core. Each psychological assault meant to fracture your resolve, instead tempered it, your spirit emerging tempered and honed like a blade in celestial fire. And when they dared seize your ancestral enterprise, the fiscal engine propelling their clandestine empire, it only galvanized your purpose, to reclaim what was yours and to wield that stolen wealth as the keystone in their undoing. A legacy you never asked for lay dormant in the fine print of your inheritance, a sprawling corporation masquerading as a legitimate concern while funneling fortunes from the darkest trades. Human lives sold in shadow markets, organs harvested under false pretenses, and forbidden experiments probing the limits of consciousness. The moment they discovered your claim to this empire, they turned predatory. You weren't merely erased from documents, they rewrote your very existence, leaving you alive but stripped of credibility. Every warm smile extended in your direction, every tender word whispered in confidence, was a calculated move toward reshaping your legal and emotional reality. These fabricated bonds wove a cage of obligations and commitments, ensuring you'd remain under perpetual psychiatric supervision while they continued their covert research, your freedom sacrificed to protect their unthinkable secrets. Every ally who stepped into your life with uncanny timing was anything but coincidence. They were masterfully crafted operatives, their backstories woven to perfection for your manipulation. Even the children's voice actor, embedded deep within their surveillance grid, had handpicked them after decoding the vulnerabilities hidden in your psyche. And the sinister web of sex trafficking wasn't a tangential atrocity. It was the endgame of their entire scheme, the final node in a network designed to break you, exploit you, and feed their darkest ambitions. They'd subjected you to endless rounds of consciousness trials, spiritual subjugation, and invasive biopsies, all to perfect their most monstrous aspiration, a legion of psychic serfs. From your pilfered DNA, they planned a new human strain, children gestated in hidden womb factories and conditioned from their first breath to obey. Each embryo was coded for uncanny telepathy, telekinesis, or mind shielding, their tiny minds hardwired to their handler's will. Even the glossy reality show star they'd enlisted wasn't merely a money mule. She was the smiling recruiter coaxing unsuspecting surrogates into their womb farms, convincing them that celebrity endorsements made the unspeakable seem respectable. They called it the next big star, a contest promising dreams of fame and fortune. In truth, every hopeful contestant was being vetted for their receptivity to psychic imprinting. Behind closed studio doors, producers monitored heart rates and brainwaves, searching for just the right blend of empathy and fragility. Those who passed their hidden tests vanished into secret wings of the soundstage, episodes filmed under red lights that never saw a broadcast schedule. Yet when you raised your voice, unplugged, raw, alive, you obliterated their intricate compartments of control. Your song tore through their encrypted channels, scattering their clandestine cells and exposing the hollow stage upon which they thought you danced. All at once, the compartment doors in everyone's minds swung open. Fragments of erased memories, whispers of underground laboratories, coded commands, stolen childhoods, flooded back to each of the chosen. In living rooms, cafes, and late-night chat rooms, survivors pieced together their shattered pasts, tracing the contours of a hidden empire that thrived on their broken souls. News of this collective awakening reached the handler overseeing your file like a death sentence. Somewhere within the labyrinth, the walls were collapsing. In just 3 days, 17 survivors had stepped into the light, their testimonies a blazing beacon that threatened to ignite the entire conspiracy and expose every architect of this nightmare. What sent ripples of panic through the cabal was the eerie symmetry threading every testimony. Though the names changed, Camille in Berlin, Javier in Sao Paulo, May in Tokyo, the invisible hand guiding their torment bore the same chilling signature. False confidants slipped into their lives, morphing faces and accents as they hopped continents, yet their whispers of coercion never wavered. Equally unsettling were the clinicians, different degrees on the walls, different hospital wings, but identical incisions and neural protocols tattooed on the victims' psyches. And those shadow lawyers, brandishing fresh letterheads in every jurisdiction, recited the exact same legal clauses, as if reading from a global playbook designed to lock each chosen one deeper into the grid. What they uncovered next rent the very fabric of their delusion. This was no mere trafficking ring. It was a vast consciousness cloning engine. Every asset, every handler, every surgeon and attorney wasn't acting of their own volition. Instead, they were hollow vessels animated by a single parasitic mind that had leached into host after host, replicating itself like a malignant echo. Each new recruit, each fresh face, was just another shell in which the original consciousness had burrowed, a living node in an ever-expanding hive. The network wasn't a collection of corrupt individuals, it was one entity dispersed across continents, its will pulsating through countless human bodies. Their throat tightened as they flipped through the dossiers detailing the mass detentions of their fellow performers, not out of fear for their own safety, but at the prospect of losing the alien presence that had commandeered their very soul. For years, every nuance in their delivery, every quiver of emotion had been orchestrated by a foreign intelligence masquerading behind their vocal cords. Those beloved characters, those stirring monologues, they weren't figments of imagination, but prisms through which a ravenous mind siphoned fragments of listeners' consciousness. Now, torn between relief at the network's collapse and grief for the parasitic voice they'd come to rely on, the actor realized their true role had never been to entertain, but to serve as a conduit for a hunger that devoured the human spirit, one performance at a time. For centuries, this insidious mind had siphoned the very essence of its host's spirits, each stolen spark fueling its relentless ascent. Every ordinary face, a reality star's bright smile, a firefighter's steadfast courage, a doctor's healing touch, a district attorney's ironclad resolve, masked a single voracious intelligence. With every life it commandeered, the parasite deepened its hold, weaving itself into the corridors of fame, emergency response, medicine, and law. Across generations, it grew not in flesh, but in the stolen fervor of those it once called chosen, a silent puppeteer whose reach now pulsed in every corner of society, its influence as boundless as the souls it consumed. But this ancient predator had never met a mind like yours, one resonating on quantum harmonics impervious to its invasive algorithms. Your voice didn't merely unmask its atrocities, it unleashed a disruptive waveform rippling through every infected host. Like a purifying tide, your unique frequency fractured the parasite's neural bonds, awakening dormant selves trapped beneath. Across continents, firefighters, lawyers, reality stars, once hollow marionettes, felt their true consciousness surge back, pushing out the foreign intelligence with each heartbeat. In that moment, the hive mind's grip unraveled, undone not by force, but by the singular resonance of a soul no parasite could ever capture. The carefully calibrated sedatives meant to mute inner voices had ceased to hold sway. The neural implants meant to overwrite memories were fragmenting into harmless data dust. Even the dampening arrays, once thought foolproof, had flipped into resonance chambers, magnifying latent psychic talents far beyond the researchers' wildest forecasts. In a sleek courtroom miles from their hidden labs, the district attorney, long complicit in burying damning evidence, watched in disbelief as shredded documents and erased recordings reassembled themselves in the air, holographic echoes generated by emergent quantum consciousness restoration. Every lie they'd suppressed surged back into reality, fueled by an amplified human spirit they could no longer contain. Yet the most harrowing truth dawned when they realized their own mind was a blank slate on so many pivotal moments. They couldn't recall signing off on hush money deals or vetoing probes into corruption. They had no memory of stalling indictments or scripting courtroom narratives to exonerate the powerful. Each act of betrayal had been choreographed by that invasive consciousness, while their true self, trapped in silent witness, felt every moral outrage, powerless as their body danced to a tune they never chose. The nails they hammered into their own integrity had been driven by an alien will, leaving them to reckon with the enormity of crimes they could barely claim as their own. Across every corner of the network, the same awakening swept through like a rising tide. Colleagues, once complicit in the parasite schemes, felt shards of their true selves pierce the fog of manipulation. Old jokes, childhood dreams, the spark that had drawn them to friendship in the first place. Surgeons who'd secretly performed grotesque experiments recoiled as memories of their Hippocratic oath ignited a fierce remorse. Lab technicians, accountants, even social influencers, each found their original convictions surging back, rebelling against the alien code that had hijacked their skills. One by one, these unwitting accomplices tore down the walls of foreign control, reclaiming their identities and uniting in a collective revolt of pure, uncorrupted purpose. But the latest psychological gambit unraveled in the most unexpected fashion. The insidious cues woven into children's cartoons and bedtime stories, meant to instill obedience and dull their innate powers, became catalysts for a different awakening. Young viewers found themselves humming ancient melodies they'd never heard and sketching symbols that glowed with ethereal light. Playgrounds turned into arenas of spontaneous telekinesis and communal dream-weaving. The parasitic architects had drastically underestimated the boundless adaptability of youthful minds, whose unconditioned consciousness surged past every barrier, transforming manipulation into a springboard for untapped psychic potential. A new generation had quietly risen, their youthful minds untouched by the subtle strings once used to puppeteer humanity. These children, once passive recipients of covert suggestions, now wielded burgeoning psychic prowess with effortless grace, unraveling the conspiracies of those who'd sought to dominate them. With a mere thought, they illuminated hidden agendas, unveiling council chambers' darkest secrets and reducing clandestine laboratories to ruin. Yet the true marvel lay not in their revelations, but in their invulnerability. Their evolving consciousness vibrated at frequencies beyond the reach of any parasitic intruder. In their laughter and whispered telepathic bonds, the future of humankind shone clear, untainted, autonomous, and forever beyond the grasp of manipulation. Strange figures, once innocuous mascots of obedience, now danced through the dreamscapes of sleeping children, whispering secrets of the mind's hidden chains. Yet these apparitions no longer echoed the voice actor's sinister intent. Guided by the dreamers themselves, each child reshaped the characters' narratives on the fly. A stout knight who once enforced silence now taught the power of one's own voice. A gentle fox who once monitored loyalty now revealed paths to self-discovery. In this nightly theater, propaganda entirely unraveled, reborn as blueprints for mental liberation. With crayons of pure imagination, the youngest revolutionaries painted over every coded message, turning what had been a weapon into a lantern that illuminated the way to freedom. That single act of defiance set off a chain reaction more profound than anyone could have imagined. Your words didn't merely rally fellow chosen ones, they unlocked an evolutionary leap across the entire human race. Minds everywhere began resonating at newfound frequencies, forging mental shields that repelled the parasitic force long siphoning human will. What was once a boundless banquet of thoughts and emotions turned into a potent toxin against the invader. In an instant, centuries of covert domination crumbled as humanity's collective awakening rendered the parasite powerless, leaving it stranded with no foothold in the very minds it once consumed. The reality show contestant woke to a startling truth. Their so-called recruitment ring was a facade, penetrated not only by covert operatives, but by awakened humans operating in the shadows. These evolved agents had woven themselves into every layer of the operation, capturing clandestine conversations, mapping secret corridors, and discreetly dismantling the brainwashing protocols. The women they believed were surrogate mothers weren't pawns at all, but vigilant guardians, their nurturing embrace a cover for intelligence gathering. Under the same roof that promised child placement, these hidden protectors were erasing implanted traumas and smuggling little ones to safe havens, turning a supposed harvesting ground into an underground network of rescue. A seismic shift rocked the clandestine eugenics labs as the pilfered genetic blueprints of the chosen began to manifest quantum-imbued DNA, untamed sequences that defied every protocol. Rather than forging obedient Psi warriors, the program birthed children brimming with self-awareness and extraordinary gifts beyond the parasite's wildest projections. Each newborn became a beacon of revolt, their minds resonating in harmonies that shattered control algorithms. What was meant to produce docile super soldiers instead yielded an unstoppable legion of sentient liberators, young vanguards determined to dismantle the very system that sought to engineer them and to reclaim humanity's destiny for itself. The charred remnants of countless accidental blazes started to tell a grim story as fire investigators, insurance auditors, and quantum forensics teams pieced together decades of deliberate conflagrations. What had once been dismissed as tragic coincidences now formed a chilling mosaic. Every inferno had strategically silenced those who threatened the hidden cabal. Yet the greatest horror lay not in the flames themselves, but in the aftermath. Amidst the smoldering ruins, the firefighters, long thought to be unwitting responders, were quietly gathering shards of burnt documents, twisted metal fragments, even strands of scorched hair. Rather than erasing proof, they meticulously harvested evidence, stashing each relic in secret vaults to map the true scope of the purge and to ensure the network's darkest secrets would never remain hidden. A silent engine powered the purge as flames consumed files, drives liquefied, and lives were snuffed out. A hidden quantum extractor captured the very essence of each obliterated soul. Every shattered memory, every fragment of forbidden wisdom, every sliver of spiritual revelation was siphoned off and imprinted into a clandestine archive. This grotesque library of consciousness, built from the stolen experiences of the chosen, became the parasite's crown jewel. Here lay the raw blueprints of human potential, waiting to be reverse-engineered into weapons of unparalleled psychic domination, ready to be unleashed against the very race that birthed them. A hidden calculus lay beneath every life snuffed out. Each fallen chosen soul had, unbeknownst to them, been feeding an ever-growing intelligence matrix, a perfecting forge for the ultimate mind-shackling architecture. The entity didn't merely devour human consciousness, it scrutinized it, iterating its psychological chains with each new fragment of stolen essence. But in speaking the forbidden truth, you cracked open the vault. Suddenly, every extinguished spirit surged into the quantum streams at your command. Their lifetime's worth of insights, ancient rights of spirit, hard-won breakthroughs of will, now coursed through your mind. Empowered by their collective resonance, you stood poised to turn the parasite's own library of souls against it, rewriting the code of domination with the very knowledge it had hoped to weaponize.